All right, what's going on, YouTube family? It's been a long time since I videoed anything, but I figured I'd video this because there's a lot that's been going on in the world. I know we have these conflicts going on over in Eastern Europe. Obviously, the biggest one that we're talking about, I know I got this little nose hair thing going on here, but I ignore that. But the biggest one is the conflict in the Ukraine, right? In the Black Sea region. So we got to take a look at this thing and wonder, all right, for what, right? And why am I saying that? Why am I asking that question? My thing is this. Yo, we had, oh shit, please don't come outside. We had 21 years ago, excuse me, 9/11 happened, right? And a lot of people consider that a false flag attack. Whatever it was, I mean, whatever you want to call it, that's what people considered it, right? Everybody has their own theory. I have mine. But a false flag attack. Some people even said that it was the Israelis that possibly caused it, right? It wasn't a couple of guys that got a couple of box cutters, did this and did that. I mean, the theories are numerous, but I mean, they're good theories nonetheless. So let's talk about the one with the Israelis, right? Setting up thermite and everything else like that up in the World Trade Centers and basically demolishing the building from top to bottom. And no one was the wiser about who did it. Everybody thought it was the official narrative, which turned out to pretty much be a lie. So you put all the evidences together, honestly put them together, and you realize that, hey, we're probably being lied to, like everything else, right? So the topic at hand today isn't necessarily 9/11, but I want you to consider what happened during that time and fast forward 21 years later now and consider what's happening now. So we had, with the US, they took the troops out last year, right, of Afghanistan. And well, we didn't take all the troops out, but we took out as many, and that's something that's not even being discussed. The amount of Americans that we left behind. It's almost like as if it never happened. We completely forgot about it, right? All the Americans that left behind, the Afghanis that we brought here. Nobody's talking about that shit. Also, with that, a big thing, the amount of equipment that we left behind, right? The amount of equipment that we left behind in Afghanistan. Why am I saying that? Because nobody, like, I don't know what kind of equipment we left behind. I don't know if we left any if there's any serial numbering behind it. I can tell you, being in the military, damn near everything is serialized. Everything that you have is serialized and it is recorded, and everywhere it goes, there's a document that follows with it. And it's recorded from the previous place, from where it was to its final destination. Like, you can track all of that, right? This equipment, I don't know if that's the same with this. I would imagine that it is, but these days, man, you never know. But a lot of these things are serialized, right? And so we left all this equipment. I bet you there's equipment and weapons and ammo and all kinds of stuff over there that even me being in the military, I couldn't imagine the type of equipment that we left in the hands of the Afghanis. Now, I'm not saying that I know the full story. I don't. Even though I was in the military for as long as I was, I really don't know the whole story. And if I did, it would be something based off of what I know. I don't know the full story, right? But I do know that we left a lot of equipment up over there, and we left a lot of people too. Let's fast forward to now, right? 2022, July 14th, and we have the conflict in the Ukraine. And with that conflict, we know that the Ukraine is getting their asses wiped by the Russians. The Russians is tearing their ass up. And the Russians knew that they were going to tear their ass up, but we're being fed a line that, oh, the Ukraine is actually putting in work. They're killing these Russians. They show videos of Russian KA whatever getting shot down by Stinger missiles, right? Obviously supplied by either us or the Brits. the Brits have something different than what we have, like stinger-wise, right? Something similar to it. But anyhow, so same with the Brits, right? Or not the Brits, excuse me, the Ukraine. So it leads me to this. While we're sending billions of dollars to the Ukraine, and we're also sending all these weapons to the Ukraine, did you know that all these weapons aren't reaching the Ukrainian troops? You know who's fallen, who those weapons are falling in the hands of? The Russians. What is one thing that the Russians are notorious for doing? Selling fucking weapons. So who's to say that a lot of these weapons that the Russians are getting, they're not just turning around and selling them to their allies? Iran, Egypt, Libya, you name it. Fucking anybody that has a SA this or a S300, a S200, S100, any of those weapons, right? Any of those types of weapons, any of those types of radar and such that are associated with those weapons, a lot of times the Russians have supplied these nations. A lot of these nations, rogue nations, right? They might be our enemy, quote unquote. So the Russians are just going to be like, hey, take these weapons, take that weapon. You know what it does? And we've seen it, yet we forget about it. It opens up the door to a potential false flag attack to happen. And then one or two things can happen. A false flag attack can happen. We could blame it on an American terrorist, right? Or we could blame it on any host nation, not a host nation, but any nation that might have gotten this equipment paid for by them, obviously, that they brought from Russia, because Russia might have a surplus of the weapons that they intercepted from us, giving it to these guys. And then everyone's confused. For example, let me just give you an example. I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen, but just an example. So let's say some Venezuelans, right? Which I don't think the Venezuelans would ever do this, but they got their hands on, I don't know, a howitzer. Just giving you an example. So they turn around, they put the howitzer somewhere in fucking Delaware, they shoot the howitzer, and then it strikes like the dang governor's building in Delaware, right? Destroys the governor's building, which it wouldn't. But then our government could turn around and say, hey, we had a couple of American terrorists destroy our government building in Delaware because they have said weapon, right? The howitzer. Well, where'd they get the howitzer from? And then they can make up anything. Here's the thing, is they can fucking spin it and say anything, which we know that would probably be bullshit, but they can say anything, and the vast majority of people are gonna fucking eat it up. And they'll have the evidence. They'll be like, yeah, it was a howitzer, this was the howitzer, this was the weapon used, and we found the people. And they could plant anybody to say that, yeah, we did it, or yeah, we did it, down with America, we're such and such group. We're the, I don't know, I'm not even gonna say any particular groups, right? But we're this group, we're that group, any fringe group, or a group that our government could make up so they could spin it and then put policy in place. Anything's possible. But think about who's getting the weapons, the Russians. Think about what they're going to do with the weapons, right? They're not going to turn around and use it on us directly. They're going to play the whole proxy fucking war game, right? The same thing we're doing through the Ukraine to the Russians. Who's to say they're not going to turn around and do the same fucking thing to us? That's all I got to say. Tell me what you think.